All right, our topic today is the human figure in art, and we're going to start with Titian with Man in a Red Hat. Um, and what's kind of fun about that is I believe it's the same guy in the middle of this painting by another artist, Carlo Dolcis, St. Andrew praying before his martyrdom. I think he's the one putting up the X cross here. And it's kind of a where's Waldo on this one. See if you can see anybody that was in the first two paintings that are in this painting. Again, my images are very small, so it's difficult for me to see exactly what's going on, but hopefully you can see one. I think it's to the left. Some of the individuals that were in the second painting are also in this third painting. So then you've got on the right side the pastoral concert, which is attributed to Titian. When it says attributed to, it means they're not exactly sure that it was Titian who did all the work. And then, yeah, so I think they're trying to make a connection between the guy on the left and the guy in the middle with the musical instrument on the right painting. Okay, so then here's some more glove action. This is two painters travel to Mantua. Dosso Dossi is on the right. And then we once again have Portrait of a Man on the left. We're all getting kind of tired of him, so hopefully that's the last of the slides with that image on the left. All right, so a parapet is a low protective wall on the edge of a roof, bridge, and balcony. And I think that's what he's leaning on the right. Okay, and then you've got, let's see, two painters. Yeah, okay, so that's this. Oh, it's two more. We'll just say it's two more men in furs, is what we'll say for that one. Okay. And then here's the image of the parapet. A little bit better with the man with the huge sleeves. There's a book out that says from the Frick collection, these sleeves should be illegal. I don't know. It's not I think it might be a reference to this painting actually, which is kind of fun. All right, let's keep going. So that was Titian land. Now we're moving on to France, and this is a family portrait. It's Charles Lebrun is the artist, who we've really never talked about that much. It's an equestrian portrait of the Chancellor of France. And then you've got a portrait of the Jabach family, which is fascinating because of all the different objects and such in this painting. All right, and then this, of course, is Velázquez's Las Meninas, one of the most famous paintings in all of the world. Velázquez is actually painting within the painting on the left. The main sort of person who we focus upon is in the middle, and she has two ladies at court with her. They also have a dog and a little person. And then the mother and father are in the mirror in the back. You guys have probably seen this painting a number of times. And then here is a study for, actually, I think it's for the portrait of a Jabach family. Okay, that makes sense, because I remember that child looks like that. Okay, and then you've got Anthony van Dyck, who is a Flemish artist from Flanders. And this is Everhard Jabach. He seems to be ready to do something. And then there's a fun sort of comparison between Van Dyck on the left, self-portrait, and on the right, again, Mr. Jubak. So using similar portrait positions. All right, now we're going to go to genre painting, which is a little bit different than what we've been looking at. It's not going to be the elite, right? And so here you have The Laundress by Jean-Baptiste Greuze. Yeah, I've always loved his genre scenes. So that's that. And then this is The Return. Hold on a second. Yeah, yeah, this is not The Spoiled Child. This is The Prodigal Son Comes Back, right? Yeah, that's The Prodigal Son. Okay, and then we're a little bit off here. Is this The Spoiled Child? Yeah, I think it's The Spoiled Child. Okay, so yeah, so Greuze is one of the most famous genre painters of all time. Genre is, of course, a scene from everyday life. And then this is kind of fun. Down below is a preliminary pastel, maybe, getting ready for the large painting in the upper left. And then there's a little bit of a comparison here between what we have on the left and the very famous Marriage Contract by William Hogarth, of course, a very satirical painter of the English aristocracy. And then, yeah, okay, so the broken mirrors on the right, and on the left, indolence. No, sorry, screwed that up. It's The Laundress, I believe, on the left, and Laundress and Child, maybe. Okay. So, and then this is, so that was Indolence and Broken Mirror that we just looked at, and then this is again The Laundress and Child, which looks like a Rococo painting and probably would be considered to be one, 1761. Okay, let's keep going. All right, this is Peter Paul Rubens, his own family, Rubens, his wife, and their son. Even though he seems to be sort of in what we would call feminine garb, whatever that means these days. But yeah, so my dad, actually, there's a lot of photographs of him in dresses when he was a very young child. All right. Okay, and then here's another one, the artist Thomas Gainsborough with his wife Margaret and eldest daughter Mary. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so now we're looking at a portrait by Mary Beale. She's not somebody that we talked about very much. In fact, maybe not too much at all. And this is her self-portrait. And of course, we're understanding a lot more about women painters these days. And then this is Gainsborough's, his two daughters, Mary and Margaret, which is kind of a fun little painting there. And then here they are again, Mary and Margaret Gainsborough, the artist's daughters, playing with a cat. Are they playing with a cat? Yeah. All right, now, here's some more of the sisters. The artist's daughters chasing a butterfly, which is quite nice. And then Mary and Margaret Gainsborough, the artist's daughters, on the right, and boy, have they grown up, right? So what might be in between? Here is the artist's daughters again at their drawing, which is between the first and second one that we just looked at. Okay, now we're looking at, of course, on the right, one of the most famous paintings of all time. It's in Pasadena, California. And on the left, you've got another younger guy in a blue jacket. So very famous on the right, not so famous on the left. Okay, this is, now we're going to move into Goya, of course, who's a realist from Spain. And we have a self-portrait here. And then The Forge, which I don't think I'd really seen before. It's a great one. It's from one of the books I've just recently read. And then you have a lot of forging going on. You've got Velázquez is in the top right, The Forge. You've got Franz Floris's Venus and Vulcan's Forge down below. And then we're comparing that with the Forge that we just saw on the left. And then Joseph Wright of Derby, you can always tell it's his work. He has very strong contrast between dark and light. This is called The Blacksmith's Shop. It's very dark. Okay, and then last but not least, under Goya, Saint Justa and Rufina. And you'd have to believe that Rufina's attribute is a lion. I'm not really sure what attribute you would call for Saint Justa. All right, now we're going to do a big sort of leap into America. And this is Thomas Sully's self-portrait. I really have always loved Thomas Sully's work. And then here's the torn hat. And then this is his version of the very famous crossing of the Delaware River by George Washington and the troops. And yeah, so it'd be interesting to compare this to Emanuel Lutz's crossing the Delaware. And we see that, well, he's not quite crossed the Delaware, I don't think, or maybe he just made the shore on the right. Ah, there it is. There's Emanuel Lutz's work, of course, the most famous of them all. And then here's, well, skip that. Sorry. John Trumbull's George Washington is not in this slide lecture. It should be, but it's not. Okay, Portraits of Girls Next to Doors, Ferdinand Knampf, Portrait of Jean Kiefer. This one's at the Getty. Some more from this artist again. And then, I don't know if I've ever actually looked at this one before. It's James McNeill Whistler's Harmony in Gray and Green, Miss Cecilia Alexander. So it's all about the doors. Portrait of Marguerite Van Mons. And then Portrait of Marguerite Knopf. So is that... Oh, it must be his daughter. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now let's move to somebody that a lot of people love to talk about and look at his works. This is, of course, Louis Comfort Tiffany, Snake Charmer, and Tangiers. No, that's not what that is. That's actually... Parakeet Window is what that is. And apparently it was displayed in Duluth in December of 1890. It's pretty interesting. All right, let's keep going. All right, so... Yeah, okay. So here we've got the Parakeet... Parakeet Window. No, we just stuck at that. Sorry. Maiden feeding flamingos in the court of the Roman house. And the one on the right must be a study for the stained glass window on the left. That would make sense. Okay, let's keep going. Ah, okay, there's the parakeets. Yeah, so on the right is Hokusai's Bullfinch and Weeping Cherry. And on the left is Parakeet's window. No, it's not. Sorry. On the left is just another image of parakeets by our friend Louis Comfort Tiffany. And then here's another one. Young woman holding a bowl with a goldfish. That's kind of fun. I like that one. That's a really fun one. And then John James Audubon's getting into the story of the parakeets. This is in his very famous Birds of America. And it's a Carolina parrot on the left. And then here's some more Tiffany in Duluth and Vanderlip Weston's stained glass windows of the First Presbyterian Church. Okay, onwards and upwards. The next few works are from Childe Hassam. Not a super famous artist, but somebody that you should look at some point. And this is At Dusk, Boston Commons at Twilight. And then here's some more in Boston, Rainy Day. Whew. And of course, this is Calabat's Paris Street, which is at the Art Institute of Chicago. It's one of the most famous paintings of the streets in that day, 1877. And then here's some more. Sunday at the Church of St. Philip du Roule, Paris. And a little bit of carriage action here. The Grand Prix Day. And then this is what he's really known for, and there's one of these paintings in the White House collection. It's Allies Day, May 1917. And then last but not least, another one with flags out, Avenue in the Rain. So basically, if you see a street scene with a whole bunch of American flags, it's likely going to be Childe Hassam. Okay, now we're going to move to this incredibly large family of artists, the Wyeth family. We're looking at N.C. Wyeth, who was known for his paintings of Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. We'll get to that in a minute. And then this is the self-portrait with palette. Okay, so Tapping Up and Down the Road is on the left. These are all, again, from Treasure Island. I Said Goodbye to My Mother and the Cove. And then on the left, from an upper platform to which the hard blocks. Yeah. Okay, so this is not obviously from Treasure Island. This is some more illustration of books. And this is one of my favorites of N.C. Wyeth. This is Captain Nemo. Very, very famous book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is considered to be one of the first science fiction books. And let's keep going. And then Island Funeral at Dark Harbor Fisherman, 1943. So the Wyeth family basically were in what's called Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, but they spent a lot of time up in Maine. Okay, so this is Dark Harbor Fisherman. So this is still N.C. Wyeth right here. All right, so N.C. Wyeth's son, Andrew, becomes the most famous of the Wyeth family artists. And this, of course, is his very famous Christina's World, which is actually the body of his wife, but with the elbow of Christina, who suffered from polio. And it's one of the most famous paintings of the American 20th century. And there she is. There's Christina. You can see it's a little bit different from the woman actually in the painting that we just looked at. So, yeah. Okay, and then this is his wife, who very much promoted his art throughout his life. And then I've always loved this one. This is Distant Thunder. And then this is interesting. So I don't know if probably they did. The Wyeth family, did really well with selling their works. but I don't know if they ever really had, a private airplane or jet. But his wife is looking out over the area there. That I think is actually where Christina's World is placed. So it's a different kind of focus on the landscape from up above. Okay, so this is Snow Hill, and it has all of his favorite folks that he painted in it. And this is Carl and Anna Kruner, the Kruners. He loved painting them. And then this is Springtime, which hopefully we're going to get to at some point. And it's kind of fun to think about how probably Andrew Wyeth was influenced by Peter Bruegel, the painting down below on the right. And then here is another one of the people that he really loved to paint. It's Bill Loper. And then you have this, I guess you could call it a sensation when his Helga pictures were discovered, or maybe not discovered. Maybe it was all just a ploy to sell the paintings of a woman named Helga Testorf. And here she is in braids. And then here she is nude. And here she is again. And then this was the magazine cover in 1986. Excuse me. When the whole sort of thing came out, or again, I don't know, I haven't read recently about whether or not it was an honest thing. But yeah, so I don't think we've seen a sensation about paintings since then, to be honest. But yeah, so it caused a whole bunch of, I guess you could call it publicity when they supposedly were discovered in 86. Okay, and then I've always liked this one, Winter, 1976. And then Adam Johnson, 1963. And then this is one of my favorites. This is one of Andrew Wyeth, Trodden Weed. Now let's go to his son, who is still alive, and not as famous, of course, as his dad, but he's definitely, been very much appreciated by the art public, for sure. And so here's one of my faves. This is one of his dogs. And then Catching a Snowflake, which is really nice. Okay, now let's move to some African-American artists. This is Charles White, who originally grew up in the South, but later moved to LA. And this one is Sojourner of Truth, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver, and Marian Anderson. Okay. And then when he moved to LA, he really became more experimental. And this is the contribution. No, I think this is The Preacher. No, sorry. This is Black Pope Sandwich Board Man. Okay. And then here's another preacher. And homage to Sterling Brown. And then Barclay Hendrix's Down-Home Taste. Okay, so this is a quote from Charles White. An artist must bear a special responsibility. He must be accountable for the content of his work, and that work should reflect a deep, abiding concern for humanity. He has that responsibility, whether he wants it or not, because he's dealing with ideas, and ideas are power. They must be used one way or the other. Okay, now we're going to move to Amy Sherrill, but I'm going to take a break. Okay, this is kind of fun. You have the very famous portrait, of course, of Michelle Obama on the left, and then Marie Antoinette on the right, which might have influenced Amy Sherald. I'd like to think it did. And one of the things about Sherald, of course, is she has this sort of plain background. It's always very colorful. She also focuses in on what her sitters are wearing, and it's usually something kind of fun with colors and such. This is one of my favorites. I think I've actually seen it before, but sort of an interesting juxtaposition of an adult with a toy horse. And here we've got Planes, Rockets, and Spaces, 2018. And then two more women here. She mostly paints women. Once in a while, you'll see a painting of a man. Yeah, we got kind of a mix here, actually. Again, you can see that she's interested in colors, wardrobe, and great background colors. That one's kind of fun and different. It's actually out in nature, which is kind of fun. And then I imagine this one is somewhat influenced by photographs of the early 19th century in America. All right, now we're going to look at Noah Davis, who tragically died. And this one is called 40 Acres and a Mule, and there's really been a huge interest in him as of late. And then we've got 1975, 2013. Okay, so I imagine these are somewhat influenced by his photographs for sure. Excuse me. Okay, now we're going to look at a couple of different artists. This is Claudette Johnson's standing figure with African masks. She is Black British, Claudette Johnson. And then here's Las Meninas by Picasso. And I think there's trying to make some sort of connection between Picasso and her work. And then Jennifer Packer has a really great painting in the Walker Art Center. And a lot of color, sort of diffuse figures is how I would describe some of her works. And then this has become quite famous lately. This is Lubania Hamid's La Rodere, The Exchange on the left. And then, what else? Yeah. Okay. A similar woman on the right. Yeah, these sculptures have become quite well known these days. And then this is Hervin Anderson's Peter's series Back, which I love. It's kind of a cool simplification of colors and shapes. All right. And then this is Tonyin Oji Odotala's. She's a Nigerian American, A Grand Inheritance. Okay. And then this is another one by her, I think, yeah. And then this would be Henry Taylor, who's become really well known in the last couple of years. And then last but not least, are we at 106 slides? Yeah. This is Kamath Doncour's Harriet Tubman En Route to Canada. All right, we did it. That was a long one. So that was Human Figures in Paintings.